Thank you so much for everyone for coming to today's training on Basic Fundraising 101. And we have Matt Kamin. As you can see, he's on your computer screen. This is the first presenter that's willing to do that, so I'm really excited. And excited to have him also be here to help us talk about fundraising. As many of you guys know, initially this was going to be for just reuse programs who need, who's always looking for funds to develop their programs. But we thought, wow, this presentation is really great in that it could be applicable to all organizations who are always trying to find funds for their different programs. And so we decided to open it up to everybody. And so Matt's going to go over what fundraising is all about, and at the end we're going to have a group discussion, sort of to help each other share ideas and maybe develop strategies and things like that. And Matt's an expert on this, so he is going to be most useful. So please think of questions as he's doing his presentation, so that you will have generate a lot of good discussions from today's presentation. So I'm going to pass the presentation to Matt, and he's going to introduce himself. Welcome, Matt, and thank you so much.
Thanks. Hi, guys. Happy Tuesday. I wanted to just thank you guys so much for joining me on this. I think it's going to be a lot of fun, hopefully. It is a basic fundraising 101. The last thing I want to do is talk to myself for the next half hour or so. So I'd love it if I see a lot of hands go up. I don't quite know how that's going to work, but I'm going to figure out how this thing works. It's more fun if we can all sort of do this together as opposed to you just listening to me, because no one wants to just listen to me the whole time. One of my favorite part of this presentation is really there's a lot of group participation, and I know it's kind of hard on a phone call, but the reason why I wanted you to be able to see my face is so that you can know who you're talking to and know kind of when we're talking, feel like you're kind of in a room with me. So hopefully this will work. It's a small little group anyway. There's only I think 7 of us or 8 of us, so it shouldn't be too difficult. Really quickly, just to tell you about me, I work at an agency called Envision Consulting, and we do all kinds of consulting for nonprofit organizations. So we do interim CEO work, we do recruiting a lot. We're doing a lot of recruiting actually right now. So if any of you are looking for jobs, then you should email me after this and let me know what you're looking for. We do events, we do fundraising. And right now, the reason why I'm doing this presentation to you guys is because we're the interim CEO at the Convalescent Aid Society, and I hope most of you know the nonprofit that we're at. And if you don't, I can talk a little bit more about that later on. So that's who we are. That's who I am. My business partner is going to be on the other side of me. So if you see me looking above the computer or smiling the other way, she's just on the other side making faces at me. Okay, on that note, I wanted to have you be participatory in this. And if some of you might want to jump in now, I'd love for you to explain to me, if you're a board member, volunteer, and employee, why you are at the agency you're at. I'd like to know what the best event, social gathering you were at last that you remember that you might be able to describe to us. And then if you guys want to tell me the company you bank with or the law firm you work with, and you'll see why I'm asking you that question later on. So how about we get somebody to start to tell me why you are a board member, volunteer, or employee at the agency that you're at. Anybody? No? It's a very quiet group. Darlene's going to be the first one. Darlene's going to tell me why she is where she is. Stacy, I'm going to pick on you, Stacy, because your name's next on my screen. I want you to write the best, or the last event that you went to that was a fundraising event, and what made it great. And let's go with Lauren. Lauren, you can tell us the company that you bank with. Okay. And let's start with Cecilia. Awesome. You're great. So they hired you? That works for me. And you had dinner with friends, okay, and Citibank. Great. Anybody else want to add to that, or I like your sense of humor, Cecilia. It was kind of funny. Okay. While you guys fill that in, let's go on to the next screen because I don't want you to have to sit there in too much silence. So let's talk about a board for a moment. When we're talking about fundraising, one of the great groups and one of the great ways that we can make that happen is through our board. I don't know how many of you are board members. I don't know how many of you are staff. And I honestly don't know at the agencies that you're at if you have a big board, a small board, if they're doing fundraising. But I want to just sort of talk about really quickly the role of a board. And this is a big part of this fundraising and how you're going to do it. So when you're looking at a board, these are the things that your board is responsible for. I highlighted fundraising because that's really the number one thing that they need to be doing for you. Obviously, there's legal oversight. Obviously, there's risk and program development, strategic planning, financial oversight, all of that great stuff, governance. But fundraising is a really key part of your board. And when you're looking for board members, if you are a board member and you don't know how to fundraise, that's what we'll get to in a little bit. If you're a staff person, you don't know how to fundraise, we'll get to that in a little bit. But the board and what's really important for your board to understand is that this is a big part of their job is fundraising. So I just want to make sure that if you have a board, if you have a nice sized board, if you don't, if they're not doing what they should be doing, this is a key part of their job. And a lot of folks who join boards will tell you, well, I don't really want to fundraise, I'm not comfortable fundraising, I'll volunteer, I'm happy to do, I'll volunteer my time. It's not that easy. They really do need to be doing fundraising because you're not going to, it's that many more people who can go out there and get you more dollars from the community. So that's a really, 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 I can't stress it enough, really important part of that, of the board member. Now, then the next slide is the frequent criticisms of boards by CEOs. So that guy right there in the corner, that's me. And I'm, criticizing my board because they're not doing what I want them to be doing. And if you look, the second issue right there is fundraising. A lot of boards, a lot of board members, I'm sure a lot of you can, I want to see how this hand thing works. So tell me something, raise your hand if you are currently on a board. I don't know, I don't see how these hand things work, but I'm assuming somebody's got to be doing it. Okay, maybe nobody's on the board right now, great. And how many of you are having problems with your board fundraising for you? Hands, let's see if I can see them. All right, I got 3 hands, cool. So the rest of you are hopefully doing great with your board, fine. But I see Cecilia and Darlene, you guys are raising your hand. This is a really cool little system. Okay, so again, if you look, these are the most frequent criticisms of board by their CEOs is fundraising. All right, so now if we go to our next, the greatest challenges for board is fundraising. So again, I think you're seeing a theme here. Hopefully you're seeing a theme, which is we want our boards to be fundraising. The role of the board, one of the main board roles is to be fundraising, and yet it's one of the greatest challenges of board members is fundraising. So let's talk about what isn't going to get you guys money on a board, staff, volunteers, whomever is trying to raise funds for your agency. I can't tell you how many times when I'm sitting in a board meeting or I'm sitting with volunteers or I'm sitting with staff or I'm just, trying to think out loud, how many times people are like, let's get on Oprah, let's get on Ellen, let's get a celebrity, let's get us in the news. That doesn't work. First of all, you're not going to get on Ellen. It's not going to happen. But second of all, it just doesn't work. I have an agency that I'm friends with who actually got onto Oprah. They were a huge part of the show. There was a whole segment about them. It was when she still had her show on a few years ago. And we looked at their website. They maybe got like 5 hits, no dollars. Nothing came their way. And actually, really, ultimately what they got was they got a lot more phone calls for people who wanted to know about their programs, and that was tips. So these ideas don't work. Celebrity connections, I'm located in LA. I don't know where you guys are located. I think, Darlene, you said you were in Utah, right? So a lot of folks want to have celebrities who are, you're in New Hampshire. Okay, Stacey, you're in New Hampshire, right? Hopefully that's what NH means. A lot of folks want to have celebrities, and it isn't going to work. It's not going to get people to give you money. And press releases, news articles, they're great to spread the message of what you do. Not going to get you money. PSA, same thing. And we've had lots of organizations who've wanted walkathons. And yet again, those are more work than they're worth. So these are issues that are not going to work. I hope, I'm assuming a lot of you have talked about it, or folks that you know have talked about it. It's not going to work. So let's talk about what is going to work. Now, by the way, generally, if we're doing this in a group, I'm going to, walk around the room and ask you guys to tell me some ideas, but since it's not working on this, I'm going to just kind of give you guys some answers here. So this is not the way we would normally do this presentation. But, so this is what is going to help you fundraise moving forward. You can do something called a small event, like a fundraiser, where you bring people together to your house over dinner, over drinks, whatever it is. You talk about the cause. You talk about what you do. You're serving things for them, so they're coming for free things. And hopefully then you get them to care about the agency, be part of the agency, want to join the board, or just want to volunteer. And at the end of that event, you would for sure ask for some kind of donation. The second thing, I don't know how many of you guys have done this, and it's a really great way to raise money, is an online auction. Online auctions are phenomenal ways to do it. There are companies called Charity Buzz. I don't know if you've heard that one. There are lots of other companies out there. You can put stuff up online. We put up a lot of things online that we never thought would raise us the amount of money they did, and it was pretty spectacular. And you'll never, we're talking like nice auction items. Not like a used book or something like that, but these are really wonderful ways if you want to raise money that you can bring in much needed cash. Another thing that's really important, that's really going to get you to give money is a personal email or a Facebook appeal. We all are connected to lots of people, and that's kind of more of a personal way to raise funds. We've seen lately a lot of folks have been raising money for various causes on Instagram, on LinkedIn. Basically, it's something that's important to them, and so they'll put it online, and then people will donate money to them for that cause. So if it's more of a personal appeal from you to your friends, people will, a lot of people will support you. Think about like the AIDS walk, for example, or when your kids are walking in something, and they'll go door to door, or you'll sell Girl Scout cookies, things like that. That's a personal appeal. Giving circles are a new thing too. I don't know how many of you have heard of giving circles, but let's say that you had a group of people who cared about a similar cause. You would all kind of come together and raise funds as a whole, and then that would then be given to certain causes. So for example, women's issues, gay issues, whatever else. There are giving circles. If you haven't heard of it, look it up. That's a big way that folks are raising money these days. I don't know how big your agencies are, but if you have a big enough agency, you can do a larger event. You don't even have to go crazy like a gala dinner. You can talk like bowling events or happy hour events, wine and cheese events, things like that, where people can pay to come to an event. That's going to get them to learn about your organization. Now, one thing that I want to be really clear on any kind of event is that whenever you have people in a room that are there to hear about your cause, whatever your cause is, you have to ask them for money. A lot of folks are very uncomfortable when they get people who already have bought tickets to come to an event to ask them for more money. But this is your chance where you have people in a room. Do not ever give up the opportunity to ask people for money when you're in a room. It's really important. I can't stress that enough. We're doing events for lots of nonprofits where we'll do a gala dinner for them or whatever it is. And they're just very uncomfortable when people have already bought a ticket to ask them for more money. But trust me when I say that it's a wasted opportunity if you don't do it when they're in the room with you. And finally, a personal donation. When you're growing a board, when you have folks who are, volunteering at your organization, even staff, people should always be asked to make a personal donation. So these are ways that can help you fundraise, and we can, since this isn't working in terms of having me have you guys talk during this presentation, think about some questions that you can, if you have any questions on these events, then we can come to it later. So, again, a lot of people are always asking, great, I know that fundraising is the way to do this. I know that's what it's all about, but how do I do it? How do I find people? How do I get people to become donors? What do I say when I talk to them? And so this is kind of what you want to think about when you're asking for money. The first thing, and I'm hoping most of you have heard about this, is called your elevator pitch or 30-second pitch, whatever it is. If I ask you, Lisa, right now, and I'll get back to your question, Darlene, in a minute. I see it. But like I say to Lisa, okay, Lisa, give me your elevator pitch. Why should I give money to your cause? What I want you to tell me now is, okay, if we weren't here tomorrow, what would happen? Why would it matter? An elevator pitch, a lot of people will talk forever, and they'll give you like a 5-minute sermon on why people should care about their cause and what their cause does. I don't care about that. I want you to tell me what's going to happen tomorrow if your agency's not here, and I want you to give me a personal story of how you personally impacted somebody. That's what's going to make me give you money, nothing else. So think about that. You should always have an elevator pitch. You should always be ready to ask people for money because you never know. You never know when you're going to have that chance. So no matter who you are, if you're staff, if you're a volunteer, if you're a board member, whomever, everybody's got to know the elevator pitch. Everybody's got to have their own personal pitch. It's got to be ready. Always. That's the one thing you should train people on. Always be ready to, when somebody says, why should I give to your cause, or what's so important about your cause, whatever it is, always be ready to give that pitch. And you can use those pitches in your small giving opportunities, which, a small giving opportunity could be a silent option, could be a crowdsourcing, you could be hosting a small event. You can have restaurants, for example, or a store wherever you're located. Go to a store that is kind of semi-popular. Ask them if for a day they'll give you 20% of their proceeds. Same thing with a restaurant. Go to a restaurant that's semi-popular or very popular. Ask them if, for a week, if they sell this hamburger, that they'll give you the proceeds for that hamburger, or whatever it is. Those are ways that you can get small giving opportunities. And then hopefully at that point, people will ask you why, what you do, what's so great about your cause. You'll have your elevator pitch right there. Now let me just go to Darlene's question. You asked, how do we come up with items to be auctioned off? And it's the same kind of idea of going around and asking folks, hey, Darlene, where are you located? Let's find out where you're located. I know you already told me. I think you said you were in Utah, right? Okay, so you're in Utah. So my question is, is there anybody that you know that has connections to anything that people may want to buy online? I'll give you an example of what one of the things that we used. We used somebody who was connected to somebody else who was in Hollywood. So they were doing a Sex and the City 2 movie, and we asked them if there was maybe a way that they can get us tickets to the premiere. We were able to get 2 tickets for the premiere, put it online, and it sold to a couple in Japan for $30,000, right? And it was for the premiere and for the after party. When you're thinking about what you're going to put online, you've got to think about the worldwide audience. It's not just people who are in Utah, it's people all over the place that might be interested in purchasing something online. So the question is, what I would suggest that you do first is go onto those websites online, see kind of some of the things that are going, that are selling for a sizable amount of money, and then see if there's anybody that who's connected to any of those kinds of ideas of where you might be able to get that money. And let me just be very clear. It doesn't have to just be Hollywood. That was just an example that I came up with. But it could be anything. You could be auctioning off, for example, air miles. Everybody's got air miles on airlines, or vacations, or experiences. There are lots of signed memorabilia. Folks like to have signed sports cards or whatever, baseball cards. So there's lots of ideas of things that are currently online that if you can go find them, you'll never know what you could potentially auction off unless you ask. So I'd recommend when everybody gets off this phone call with me that you go online, go on to any of those online auction items, auction companies online, see what they're doing, and then maybe start making a list of things that people people who know people, and you put it online. You'd be surprised. And remember, it is not just a national online auction, it's international. So that's the way to raise money right now. So I think we were talking about, I was done with the small giving. Let me go to larger giving. Hopefully the majority of you have somebody in your office who can send out grants to foundations. Maybe it's you who's doing it. That's a really, really, really important way to raise funds. When you're looking at how much of your money is going to come from certain areas in terms of foundation, corporations, individuals, events, things like that, foundations don't give up the largest part of our donations. Individuals that give up the greatest amount of donations to nonprofits. But a lot of nonprofits are relying on foundations, they're relying on corporations, they're relying on government grants. All those are great ways to raise money. And so if you're not right now, if you don't have a grant, if you don't have a grant template, if you haven't thought about foundations to hit up, you got to make sure that you start doing that. Hold on, I wanted to go back. Stacy just asked. I'm currently moving. Actually, we'll get to that question in a minute. I'll get to that question at the end, Stacy. So that's foundation. Corporate sponsorships are also really big. All of us live in a town with corporations. This is why I asked you at the beginning where you bank. All of us probably have a bank account at a bank. Every bank branch has to give out a certain amount of money a year. Go to your bank. Ask to speak to the manager. Ask them to give you a donation. They have to do it. Go to your, for terms of a silent option, go to your car wash, go to your favorite restaurant, go to wherever it is that you generally spend money, ask them for a donation, whether if it's a bank you're talking dollars, if it's a, if it's a car wash you're talking a silent option. If you have a lawyer that represents your agency and you pay them on a monthly retainer, ask them for a donation at the end of the year. Those are different corporations that you can ask for money, where you should always be using the relationships that you currently have. So just remember that whenever you're thinking about who can I possibly hit up, anybody that you give money to on a monthly basis that works for you, you can always hit them up for money. And finally, obviously, your larger giving opportunities would be like a gala or a brunch or a concert. Those are big time events. It isn't just something that you take on. It is something you have to plan for. Generally, it's about a year planning. So that's something that you can think about that can bring in money, but just be sure that the amount of work that it takes to prepare for it doesn't take you more time and doesn't cost you more money than what you're going to raise out of it. Okay? And this is the slide that we use all the time for our boards. And when people are thinking about why they should become board members, when you're trying to get people to join a board, and we get this question all the time, how do I find board members? How do I find good board members? These are the things that you can tell them that they'll be able to be part of as a board member. And this is a really, really important thing. Hopefully you should all have these answers. You should all know if I get a certain board, where I can grow my agency. What is the strategic plan of my agency? How many members of clients do we serve if we're serving clients? What are our success stories? What's our most important success story? How can I share that? If you're going to join the board, you're going to make new friends. Those are things that are really important. You get to give board members a personal satisfaction of doing good work, giving back. They'll stand out as a leader in the community. These are all really important things to remember when you're asking people to join boards. So that is basically the presentation. Obviously, it would have taken a little bit more time had we all been able to talk during it. But that's basically that. So let me really quickly look at Lisa's question. Okay, so the pitch that I don't know if all of you can see what I can see in terms of the chat. So Lisa said there will be a whole population of people who have autism and are in need of consult for job services. At this time, hundreds of families worry about this. I want to help. That's my pitch. So what I'd want to see in your pitch, Lisa, is, okay, how do you help? What is it exactly that you're doing? Why you? What happens if you're not there tomorrow? Give me an example of a family who came to you who needed your services and what you were able to do to them. And then if you weren't there for that family, what would happen? That's your pitch. I hope that answers your question. So that's that. And I think, Rosemary, I can see you, so I know you're still there.
Hi.
How do you
Yes,
want to take questions?
let's take questions. Yes.
Oh, Shannon.
Hi, thank you, Matt. That was really, wow, that's very insightful about fundraising. I didn't even think about some of the things you mentioned before. But let's say I know that Lisa had a pitch. Does anyone else on the phone want to try out a pitch with Matt to see, for those who have a headset or dialing in, that won't create an echo sound? Just want to give them a couple minutes so that if there are any other questions for him before I ask a couple of questions myself. Okay, let me see.
You guys can also write
Right.
your questions. I mean, it's been helping me.
Right, you can also write your questions.
So you don't have to.
You don't have to use your headset if you don't have any.
But
But I think that way, you know, in the very beginning of the presentation, you were asking those 3 questions. Did you, besides the bank one, were the other 2 relevant things that you wanted to mention? It was in the very beginning.
Well, I think, what I think is important is here's the reason why we ask those questions. Obviously, the third one is the company you bank with. Most people, and this is something we talked about, most people don't think that you can hit up your bank or you can hit up your supermarket or you can hit up your restaurant or whatever it is. Wherever you go, whatever it is that you do on a daily basis, always remember that those are folks that you should be hitting up, because if you're not doing it, your competition, all the other nonprofits out there are doing it. So it is something that you should all think about. Something else that you can do, I mean, most of you, I think everybody has like a Sam's Club in their city or a Costco in their city. All of these companies, the managers of these companies, of wherever they're located, they have a certain amount of money that they can give out every month. I ran a homeless shelter in New Jersey, and I remember I went to a Costco and a Sam's Club in every city that we served in the county, and we got like $5,000 per store per month. So just remember that you can always hit them up. It's something that you should for sure be doing, and if not, think about it. And the reason why I asked you guys about the best party or an event or social gathering that you went to is because it's something to think about where you enjoyed yourself. I don't want to go to another fundraising event. Fundraising events happen all the time. They can be really boring. Truthfully, the food's going to suck. You know, I mean, there are reasons why people don't want to go, why they have a negative connotation to them. But if you remember the good things that you went to, the fun events that you went to, that's what you should be doing when you're making your fundraising events. You want to make them enjoyable for people to want to come. So that's kind of why I was asking you that, and those are things that you should be doing. We just did a little event on a Friday night where it was a fundraiser. And we had each board member of the agency invite a guest or 2, and they came, and we had endless food and wine, and people got together, had a good time, and then we just made a quick 20-minute presentation, and it was not crazy. Asked them to join the board, asked them for a donation, talked to them about what's happening, and left it at that. It was a really successful event because it was fun. So that's why I asked you guys that. And the reason why I asked you to explain why you work where you are, and I only had one person, which I thought was really funny because they hired you, but really think about what it is that sets your agency apart. Like really what it is that sets your agency apart. And I think that's going to be a huge part of your pitch. And if you don't have the answer, if you can't tell me why, if tomorrow, if your agency were to go away, it wouldn't really matter, then your agency doesn't deserve to be there. So those are things to really understand and think about, and that's why I asked you those questions.
Oh, okay, that makes sense then. Okay, that really helps me. I was wondering why you asked those questions. Good, thank you. So I wanted to ask the participants, what are some of the strategies, what are some of the challenges you guys have with fundraising? You know, so maybe Matt can help you answer those questions.
And Shannon, before we get to that, there is the question if walkathons and those kinds of fundraisers are just not worth the effort. And then the rest of it is how do I promote, or how would you promote an online option? So the thing with the walkathon is that it has to be done well, and walkathons that are done well cost a lot of money. It takes a lot of effort. It's a lot of time. And people just don't want to keep coming to walkathons, and they certainly don't want to keep giving to walkathons. The other thing about walkathons that I don't like is that it's just a huge cost. So you make $100 from somebody, probably $80 of that is going to go to the cost of the walkathon. So overall, I wouldn't do it. I think a walkathon is just a lot of work for not a lot of return, and you're taking on a lot of liability because God forbid somebody gets hurt, somebody I don't know, runs out of water, whatever it is, you're taking on a lot of responsibility and liability for you and your board. So I would probably tell you I wouldn't do it. Unless you have a great track record with one, or you can do it in partnership with other organizations that are already doing it, don't do it. In terms of online option, the one that I use is CharityBuzz, but there are quite a few other online options or services out there. But look up CharityBuzz, take a look at what they do, and then you can Google it and see what other companies are out there. It is more them that's going to get you the most amount of bang for your buck than you. This is not something you have to sort of inundate your donors. You can tell your donors that you have stuff up there and they can buy it, but for items that are online, they're going all across the world. So it isn't your donors that have to actually give you money. And that's what's so great about an online option. You're not, our donors are asked all the time to give us money. This is like the one time they're not asked for money because it's something that somebody buys because they want it. It has nothing to do with the mission of your cause. So it's a really great way to make some money, and they do take a portion of your profits. Generally, you're looking at 10 to 20% of what they raise. So just think about that when you're putting stuff up there. You're looking for items that are going to bring in 2,000, 5,000, 10,000, 20, whatever it is. You're looking for big size items. They will take a portion of it because that's how they make money, but they want you to make the most amount of money so that their portion brings them in more dollars. And at the end of the day, it's actually on them to get the most amount of followers.
About social media.
Social media is a really important piece of marketing and fundraising. Social media is the way of the future. I didn't talk about social media because it's a whole other presentation that is complicated and important. Your organization should be all over the place. And it isn't just that you want to set up an account on Instagram and set up an account on Facebook and set up a website and all this great stuff. You need to be dedicated to it. And it takes a lot of time and it takes a lot of effort. And at the beginning, you're just going to be talking to yourself until you start getting more and more and more followers. But it is a really, really, really important resource that eventually will build a brand and build your brand online. And I think a lot of nonprofits, because they don't have a lot of funding, they don't have a big budget, they don't devote enough time to social media. And if they do, they have like a volunteer that will basically, this happens to a lot of nonprofits that we come in. They'll have a volunteer that sets them up on a Facebook account or an Instagram account or whatever it is. Then that person will go away or go missing, and they'll have lost their login or they'll lost their password. They no longer have control of what's out there. So it's really important that no matter what image you put up there, that it's consistent, that it matches your website, it matches your appeals, and you have to be sure that you have enough content with blogs and pictures and all that good stuff to sell what you do. If you don't have that, then start thinking about how you can, because really social media is the way of the future, especially with the next generation of donors. The next generation of donors isn't interested in joining boards, they're not interested in going to galas. They're going to be giving things online. It feels about like 15, 20 years for them to be doing that, but it's something that hopefully all of you are thinking about and doing, and it's a really important resource. So thanks, Shannon, for asking about that.
Yeah, no, thanks for answering that question. So for the participants, so what are some of your challenges for with fundraising? Is it, are you guys fear of talking to donors, or what are some of the challenges that you have with fundraising? I think Darlene is typing and Lisa are typing.
Yeah.
Okay. Great. Well, so we'll just give them a couple minutes. And for those who have a headset or on the phone, they could also ask if that question can answer that question.
The one thing that we didn't talk about, by the way, in terms of fundraising is an annual appeal. A lot of organizations will do newsletters and they'll do email blasts and whatever it is that they'll do. Your annual appeal is really important, and now is the time that you start sending that out. So hopefully you guys.
Darlene said that she has a fear of not and the knowledge of who to ask, like because with some companies or organizations, it's like everyone hits up on the same people and they get tired of it.
You know what? Here's the thing, and here's what you have to remember. Yes, a lot of us are always going to be hit up. Yeah, of course, we get hit up all the time. That's fine. But if your organization stands out, and if I have a personal connection to your organization, whatever it is, I'm going to give to your organization. Absolutely, all banks get hit up all the time. Huge or any kind of store gets hit up all the time. For silent option items, you can't imagine how many times restaurants get hit up, Disneyland gets hit up, whatever it is. It doesn't matter. You have to ask. Your organization is really important, or you wouldn't be asking, you wouldn't be there, you wouldn't be working there. You care about it, ask the question. The worst I can say is no. Obviously the best I can do is give you a nice donation. So I understand where you're coming from. The one thing to keep in mind is they may say no, but that's because they may have already given all their money out this year, but they can then maybe put you on their list for next year. But no matter what, people get hit up all the time. That's just the nature of the beast. You have to keep asking. And as I said, that's why when you do ask that question, when you do ask people for money or a silent option item or whatever it is, just remember what sets you apart. Why is your organization vital? What would happen if you weren't there tomorrow? Why do I, Matt Kamin, want to give to your organization? What's in it for me? Those are the things that you need to be able to tell them in the 30-second elevator speech pitch. Don't give them stats. Don't give them boring anything. That's not what they're interested in. Why? Why you? Why you as opposed to 9,000 other organizations that have hit me up today? So it's a good question, and that's really important to remember. Something that when I do keep talking about silent option. I know you've heard me say silent option a lot. It's also a really great way to raise funds, and it's easy to get silent option items. It's more of a pain to sort of set it up at the event, but it's a really great way to raise funds, especially when you're having a fundraiser. So think about that too as another way that you can raise some easy funds. And also, if you're going to start, when you're asking people for money, it's obviously a gradual thing. You're not going to meet somebody today and get $1 million from them generally. So when you're starting a relationship with somebody, you can ask them for a silent option item, and then the next time you're asking them for $100, and the next time $1,000. Keep it going. Keep increasing that ask. I got a question about grants from Lisa, and so in terms of grants, if you're the one doing the grants and you've never written a grant before, I would suggest Grant Writing for Dummies. It's a book that you can buy at any bookstore, or you can get on your Kindle, and it would tell you how a grant works. Grant writing really does follow a formula. It's a very specific formula, but it follows a formula that every nonprofit pretty much has to do. And like I said, Grant Writing for Dummies, Grant Writing 101, there's lots of books out there about grant writing, and you'll be able to you'll be able to see how to do it. And then basically the second part of that is finding foundations that you could apply to. That's a little bit more complicated. Take a look at Foundation Center online. It costs money. I think it's like $300 or $500 a year. But that's the way that you can sort of take a look at which foundations will fund your mission, and then you apply to them for funding. Sometimes your board members or volunteers or staff or some people have connections to some of those foundations. It's pretty much going to guarantee you to get money from them. But otherwise, Grant Writing 101, go online to Foundation Center, write a grant, send them out, see how you do. That's the way to do it. How do I think today that donors wish to be contacted? You know, ultimately, I think that donors like the one-on-one thank you. That's the most important piece that I can tell you. Contacting them, there's all kinds of ways you can do it: social media, letters, phone. Well, if nobody wants a phone call, events, online auctions, all that great stuff. But once you do get a donation from them, be sure that you make them feel appreciated. If you do not make them feel appreciated, they will not give you again. So have a board member call them, have a client call them, you call them, even for 20 bucks, call them. So obviously you make sure that you send them a thank you letter for their tax write-off donation, but call them and be sure to thank them. It's just a really, really, really important piece of the puzzle that will get you to get more money next year. If you know when their birthday is, for example, or you know when their anniversary is, or whatever it is, send them a birthday card. Bring them to your agency. Bring them to your agency to get a tour. Those are all really important things once they've donated. So I did say earlier people hate phone calls. What I said was people hate phone calls. What I meant was people hate phone calls at the first place to ask for money. Once they've given you money, people are cool with phone calls. Let's see. So I got the grant question down. That's it. Those are the questions that were asked.
Yes, you did cover most questions. Are there any more questions? We have 5 more minutes left. You know, make sure you get all the information you need from Matt. Any more questions?
Also, if you guys want to have any other, you know, if you guys are interested in any more information other than that, here is that's my email address. Feel free to email me, and you can go to our website. That's our website, envisionllc.net. You can learn more about what we do. I want to see all of you have a website like ours. I want to see all of you have a dynamic, exciting, this is what you do website with pictures and not a lot of text. Not a lot of text. So if I can tell you anything, take a look at our website, take a look at some of the clients that we have, and you can see some really great websites out there. So, you know, if you need anything, then email me.
Great. Thank you, Matt, for that very useful presentation about fundraising. We all need it, especially with the work we're doing. See, even Darlene gave an applause. So,
thank you. Thank you. Oh, and by the way, if you one other thing I can tell you just for some extra advice, if you go on our website, you'll find our blog. Take a look. We've written things on there about fundraising. You can see, you know, we've given you free advice on our website. Today you got free hour, but also on our website as a blog that you can follow. That should tell you some more good information. And thank you, Lisa. I appreciate the thumbs up.
Yes, thank you so much, everyone, for coming. I think it's going to conclude our presentation for today. If there are no more questions, and of course, as Matt said, you can always contact him if you think of questions later on, and just send him an email, which is matt@envisionllc.net. And also check out their website to see their blog and to find out other information about what they do. Thank you so much, Matt, and everybody for coming to today's webinar. Bye.
All right. Bye-bye, everybody.